members of the National Executive Committee who are here. On my far right is Comrade Fikile Mbalula, the head of elections, or head of elections. Next to him is Comrade Mungula Mkanyan, is the head of organizing. Next to Comrade Mungula is Mamelodi Dubai, he heads economic transformation and organization. On my far left is Comrade Ronald Lamola, he heads constitutional development. And then next to him is Sis Ramaphosa, she's the coordinator of the SGO, and our Treasurer General, who's also in charge of the Secretary General's office. I'm going to invite the TG, and why we have all these members of the National Executive Committee here is because they are discussions that took place in the NEC, and they were presenting those discussion documents, including constitutional amendments, ETC, organizational matters, poverty and rising cost of living, communication strategy, and coalition. That's why they are all here. But if there are issues specific to their areas, they are also able to speak to those once our Treasurer General has presented this thing. TG, over to you.
poverty and deprivation must therefore be the first priority of diplomacy. The ANC must therefore continue resolutely
through the National Health Insurance and improving the public health system as a backbone of a future unified health system. And lastly, land reform that expand participation and ownership of land, agricultural production that advances food security and addresses the spatial separation of our cities and towns. These short and medium-term interventions remain on top of the agenda of the ANC national officials, the National Working Committee, and the National Executive Committee. The 55th National Conference of the ANC that will be held in December will also be seized with these matters. The NEC remains clear that the movement it leads remains resolutely committed to the implementation of broad-based black economic empowerment, BBEE. It noted that whilst progress has been made in empowering black people and women in the economy, the benefits of this progress have not been felt by all South Africans. This means that we need to intensify rather than relax BBEE measures. The measures taken include skills development, preferential procurement, investment in black-owned and managed firms, and increasing the number of black people who manage, own and control enterprises and productive assets in the economy. Such measures have been implemented in the context of an economy with a high degree of market concentration, which limits the opportunities for new entrants. We have therefore been using our competition laws to promote the emergence of new black-owned companies in various sectors of our economy. The NEC, however, noted that we need to do more and that there are attempts on the part of opposition parties to reverse this critical policy of economic transformation. We must therefore strengthen and expand government and DFI's funding for black industrialists and create platforms for a new entrepreneurial industrial class that can fully harness the resources of our country. We have to do more to advance the empowerment of young people. The NEC noted the creation of Youth Employment Service established with the private sector. In only 2 years, the Youth Employment Service has created opportunities for many thousands of unemployed young South Africans. Of the participants, of 84% are youth and 62% are women. the SA Youth Mobi platform, which provide pathways for young people to employment, learning, and youth enterprise, was also launched, supported by the National Youth Development Agency. To date, over 3.3 million young people have registered on the platform, and more than 900,000 young people placed in earning opportunities. The National Youth Service is being revitalized to offer young people opportunities to undertake work that builds the economy and provide them with skills, self-confidence, and work experience. The NEC noted the work by the National Treasury in responding to the Constitutional Court deadline on preferential procurement in the public sector. The NEC affirmed its position that broad-based black economic empowerment remains our key policy instrument and urged all our deployees to ensure that this principle is sustained. The ANC, through its Economic Transformation Committee, will monitor progress in government and continue to engage with stakeholders, especially black business and professionals. The NEC noted progress with preparations for an Alliance Economic Summit by a joint Alliance Economic Transformation team. The summit will be critical to cement common position on economic transformation and development and championing the interests of South Africans, in particular the working class and the unemployed. The NEC took note of the resolution of the recent Congresses of our alliance partners, the South African Communist Party, the Congress of South African Trade Unions. The 55th National Conference will deliberate on the alliance in the context of the ongoing discussions on the reconfiguration of the alliance. The NEC received a presentation on the work of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which has been passed by the National Assembly. This paved the way for its consideration by the National Council of Provinces, currently in progress, ahead of the 10th December deadline set by the Constitutional Court. The main aim, or the main objective of the bill, is to make provision for independent candidates to contest election for the National Assembly and provincial legislatures, and for the requirement and qualification that must be met by persons who wish to be registered as independent candidates. The National Assembly passed the bill after processing inputs solicited from citizens through public hearings and written submissions since the beginning of the process. The debate about the most appropriate electoral system for our country is an important part of our maturing democracy. The ANC has always supported proportional representation system as it is best suited to a country as diverse as ours in terms of race, class, gender, and political opinion. It ensures that every political viewpoint shared by more than 1/4% of the population is able to find representation in Parliament. The NEC also supports the view that the electoral system reforms must strengthen accountability of public representatives, which should be addressed in the next round of amendments and must be discussed widely in our society. The NEC noted the objections from some sections of civil society and expressed a desire to continue an ongoing engagement on these matters, taking into account that more comprehensive electoral reforms can only be undertaken in the medium term on the basis of a wider public consultation. The ANC also noted the report of the NEC task team on the state capture Commission report and supported the submission made by President Cyril Ramaphosa to Parliament on the 22nd of October this year. That response to the report and recommendations of the Commission as an important step in our national effort to end all forms of state capture and corruption. The NEC also noted that since the 2021 local government elections, coalition governments have become a widespread occurrence in our body politic. Past and recent experience of coalition showed that they tend to be fluid and volatile. The NEC reaffirmed its principled approach towards coalition governments where a need arises, based on advancing the pursuit of a better life for all, building local democracy, and improving accountability to citizens in line with the ANC principled and strategic framework for local government elections. The coalition task team will continue to reflect on these matters. The NEC welcomed the report from the National Conference Preparatory Committee on preparation for the 55th National Conference, which will be held from the 16th to the 20th of December 2022. The NEC thanks thousands of ANC members who between the 16th September and the 7th of November this year gathered in their branch general meetings, BGMs, to reflect on various matters on the agenda of conference, including election of delegates and nominations for the ANC. It further welcomes similar meetings held by the ANC Veterans, Youth and Women's Leagues. There are a few disputes relating to the BGMs recorded, and the ANC Provincial and National Dispute Resolution Committees are processing those disputes. that developed countries must honor their commitment to reduce their own emissions and to pay for mitigation and adaptation in developing countries. It further confirmed our commitment to an energy mix that takes into consideration our natural endowments and the development needs of the country in the context of a just transition. The NEC congratulates President Lula da Silva of Brazil and the Partido dos Trabalhadores, the PT or Workers' Party, on overcoming the forces of reaction and on his re-election to lead Brazil on his path of progressive transformation. We welcome his return to BRICS and the strengthening of progressive voice in the global arena. At the end, the NEC received a report on the work by the Integrity Commission and will maintain its ongoing engagement with the Commission. Thank you very much. That's all. Comrade Pule was just reminding that I forgot to include the fact that the NEC congratulated Comrade Balegan was she indicated that she has served for many years in the NEC and this will probably her last. She will not be available going forward, and we thank her for her service for many years. She's a child of the ANC, grew up in the ANC and served it well. And the ANC congratulates her for that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, TG. We will now open the floor for questions. Please say your name and the media outlet you come from. Just want to make sure. So we take it that in this briefing we're only going to have one question. We're still waiting for the desk to send. Just in case. You can go ahead. Hello. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Moreno. I will give it to my SABC News. Number one, what informed the decision for the NEC to decide that the issue of the alliance will be discussed at the national conference in December? Has it got anything to do with what we saw happen during the May Day in the Northwest, where the president of the party was booed and was not allowed to speak, or has it anything to do with what we saw at the COSATU Congress, where the Mandash chairperson was also chased away from addressing that event? That's number two. What did President Cyril Ramaphosa say exactly with regards to what happened in Phala Phala? We hear a lot of reports that he did come out clean to you guys at the NEC and he did take you into confidence, but we also hear that some NEC members were calling for him to step aside. We are what he can. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's Yanda Mobile from Newsroom Africa. Mine is more of a logistical question. Do we know when did the Integrity Commission say when they'll be able to complete their reports now that the President has actually come clean before the NEC as per the draft reports? And insofar as the discussions regarding the step aside, are you leaving that only for the conference to deliberate on? Thank you.
TJ will just take all the questions and then when we answer. like we said before we started that if there are specific questions, NEC members are also here. They relate with their area of work in the NEC, they will also be able to deal with that.
Thanks, Budi. My name is Tando Mayako from the Business Day. Could the G kindly clarify media reports that the ANC is considering selling off some of its assets in Zambia and other places in order to cover its debts? Secondly, to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, could you kindly just expand on the constitutional amendments that were proposed to the NEC, specifically looking at perhaps expanding the number of officials at the 55th National Conference? Thank you.
Okay, when he's here is the head of constitutional development. So when you say minister, we thought you were asking a departmental question. So just be clear with Comrade Lamola. So, are we done this side?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Onje from Power FM News. Mine is slightly linked to Zianda's question. TG, on Friday, I remember you stating that you have the Integrity Committee reports on your table and you will be presenting them on Saturday as part of the agenda for Saturday. Could you please explain what then led to you not being able to present those that report of the Integrity Committee? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Treaty Jones, ENCA. Mine is linked to Leader Mflamkonyane regarding your remarks that this is possibly the weakest NEC in the ANC history. Maybe just clarity on that. Are you then referring to the fact that the quality of branches in the ANC is appalling, or in the sense that the leadership has disappointed many and has not achieved its objectives within 5 years? Thanks.
Okay.
I'm from electoral. To the TG, just adding on to the question regarding the ANC selling of resources. You as the President General, what is the state of the ANC finance? How do you leave it, and what do you think your advice would be for your successor? Is the ANC's finance, is it healthy?
You know, the section of the ANC conference where finances are presented is a closed session. Okay. Okay, are we done?
Yeah.
Okay, should we start with Comrade Lamola? Yeah. Comrade Mbola. But if there are other questions that members of the NEC want to clarify, they are welcome to do so.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, we presented the constitutional amendment in line with the 28 of the ANC Constitution, which were received tenuously from structures across the country, including the subcommittee and the NEC itself. The amendments will have to pass what is a two-thirds majority at the conference venue. Indeed, there have been amendments that may impact on the top 6, and that proposed amendment which came across the structures is a position of an additional Deputy Secretary General, which will also have to pass the two-thirds majority requirements, and there have been lots of other amendments which will be published tomorrow for circulations and comments by the structures. Thank you.
Yes, it is not only me. In our own reflection as presented by the President even yesterday, he acknowledged that we have gone through serious challenges as this NEC. We had come out of a highly contested conference in Nasrec, where there were clear groups that were nominated, and the outcome actually brought two groups together, but it has not been easy to work together. Branches of the ANC are intact, and I think we need to give gratitude to members of the ANC who have survived the storm of COVID, operating under lockdown. We now have over 4,300 branches of the ANC, hence what TG has raised. What becomes a challenge is us having a leadership that will have the energy and stamina to service branches and structures and to become the link between the African National Congress and the people of South Africa. I entertain that view. Thank you.
Maybe should we take the TG or NEC members want to add before the TG comes? That's fine. That's fine.
Let me answer first the issue of the alliance. We have been in discussion as the alliance for quite a while, and one of the issues that is on the agenda of the alliance meeting is what we call the reconfiguration of the alliance. It has been discussed in the Alliance Political Council. It has also been discussed in the Alliance Secretariat, and it will then go to the National Conference. But we then agreed that before the National Conference, we should have what we call the Alliance Economic Summit. But we will also add the issue of energy. The Alliance Secretariat felt that it should be Economic and Energy Summit. We appointed a small task team, a joint task team that is working on the details, and that will come perhaps in the next few days. We'll get a report, and that will then determine the date on when the summit will take place. On the issue of the Integrity Committee, the Integrity Committee reports to the NEC whenever there are issues that they want to report. And that's why I said on Friday there is a report that was going to be tabled. It had nothing to do with Phala Phala. It was a report of the Integrity Committee on other matters. And that report was tabled and noted by the NEC. And then the NEC then said they had some questions around that report, and they would like the Integrity Commission to be invited to come and assist in answering some of the questions they had. On the issue that affects the President, the Integrity Commission is still working on those matters, so they have not sent a report to us, except that a draft report was leaked in the media, but there's no report that has come to the ANC because they are not ready yet. With respect to the assets, we have a very comprehensive approach in dealing with our assets. As you know, that the ANC was in exile for many years. We then took a decision that we should look at the state of some of those assets, but also look at the assets that we have in the county currently. We took a decision that we'll put all our properties in one company so that it's easy to manage them. However, there are properties in other countries that we feel we will not need to use anymore, and those will be sold off. And there are other assets that we will still keep in foreign countries. There are assets that are of historic and political value to the ANC, like our headquarters in Lusaka, which we are preserving, and our head office in London, and then others we will dispose of. But we are creating a consolidated property company that will manage all our assets. State of finances, we have been battling with funding because of the funding environment. You know that since the Party Political Funding Act requires disclosure, many companies are a bit reluctant, but also there is a limit on how much people can donate in a year, which is limited to 15 million rand a year. That has created a lot of constraint on our fundraising effort. We have since asked the Minister to look at amending that Act. We have presented our proposals. So as the Minister of Home Affairs is busy with amendment on the Electoral Act, he will also look into this matter as well. However, our efforts on fundraising have not died completely. It is difficult, but we are surviving. We have paid all our staff to date, and this month, and next month, and the other month, and the other month. We will also be able to hold a successful conference, and we'll be able to pay our creditors, pay for the venues, for the hotel. We are raising funds. So we are not rich, but we are surviving. Thank you very much.
Thanks, TG. What's happening now? Follow up. Okay. So let's take the final round of questions. Okay, TG wants to know.
A comment was just reminding me that there's someone who said, what did the president actually say? I know it was confidential. He was briefing just the NEC. The rest of what you want to know will come when the reports are ready. I think for now, let's respect that confidentiality.
Yeah, let's take the final round.
Brian Sukutu from the Citizen. TG, you have conceded that there has been a decline in the ANC's electoral support. Can you explain what has led to this state of affairs, and what are you doing to regain lost ground?
Okay, Comrade Bart is also here. He's the head of elections. I'm sure. Bart will take that question.
To the TG again, just to follow up, is he looking to raise from the disposing of its assets? How much of the payments will come to strengthen the contentious step-aside rule?
Okay, Lamula will deal with that.
Good afternoon, Noma Zimakosi from Soweto. I just wanted to ask, in terms of, just to echo that Sokoto's question, in terms of coalitions, I wanted to find out, has the NEC discussed any sort of framework around coalitions? And also, just to possibly ask, the DA has made proposals in terms of how to regularize them, legislate them. I just wanted to check, is this, the proposals that have been put forward, is this something that the ANC has considered? Because we've seen a lot of instability around coalitions, so instead of just leaving it up to coalitions agreement that fall apart on a daily basis, is the ANC taking stock, and just what are some of the proposals that are out there?
Thank you. And maybe to add on to what Unoma is asking, what is this committee on coalitions that you've actually established going to do exactly? The reason I'm asking, there seems to be a discordant between national and province and the regions where we find the municipalities. What is the committee going to do exactly? Thank you.
Are we done? Nothing from this, okay. But, yeah, congratulations.
Thank you very much. What led to the waning of support for the ANC? They are both objective and subjective factors. And the objective factor is the fact that we conducted election in a period of COVID with a number of regulations that disadvantaged the ANC in relation to the date of the election, but also the period to campaign. It was very short. We had to decide where to campaign within a month. And the ANC as the biggest party, that worked in its disadvantage. That's the first point. The economic situation. The problems that affect ordinary people and South Africans during the period of the campaign, electricity was one of the issues that affected us. Poor service delivery at local government level worked against us. There is a litany of subjective factors that led to the decline of support. Infighting in relation to candidates that were selected by communities, and that led to the establishment of the Democratic Commission, which we are still dealing with, processing some of the discontentment in the different areas that affected the ANC support. In certain areas, people just deciding that we're not going to vote. The numbers in terms of voter turnout, the low voter turnout, affected us a lot because it meant that if people of Soweto do not come out in their numbers to vote, Johannesburg will go to the opposition or fall in the hands of the coalition. So the other factors that led to the decline is the battered image, issues of corruption, issues of service delivery. So I don't want to talk about the media today because it put me in hot water last time because it looked like I'm attacking the SABC when I was just raising an issue. So, but I think it is resolved. The coalitions, we do have a framework in terms of coalitions, and we do have a framework, and that framework, among others, we have principles that guide us in terms of these coalitions, and our approach is informed by keys like before entering into a coalition, any coalition, we decide whether coalition building is advantageous, and our actions are driven by clear objectives. And we only consider coalitions where the ANC has had a major stake in a municipality. But exceptions are allowed after motivation. We don't do smash and grab, which other political parties do. Person with one seat wants to become a leader of a municipality. We don't do that. We negotiate and enter into coalitions and consider coalitions in municipalities where we've got a majority. For instance, in Tshwane, we lost to the DA, outright loss, even though themselves did not get outright majority. Our coalition partnerships are structured relationships, not dependent on personal relationships. In all instances, the ANC needs an extensive communication drive that takes the electorate into confidence. So when we get into a coalition, Like in Nelson Mandela, we explained to the people who have elected us that we are entering into a coalition with the following smaller political parties for the following reasons. In the main, our coalition prioritized service delivery and stability of the municipalities. All coalitions are managed and continually monitored to ensure that they meet the commitments we have made to the electorate. We had a negotiating team that was led by the DSG, just to conclude the point that is asked about committees. And then that communication, that coalition negotiating team included a number of comrades in the National Executive Committee. We concluded coalitions. We did not succeed in municipalities in Gauteng. It's only coming back now, the issues of the coalition. And then we concluded a number of coalitions in Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and many other areas in the country, different provinces. And then after that, the NWC established the clearinghouse at the national level, is headed by myself and reporting to the teaching. And then provinces, in terms of the framework that guide us before, like in Gauteng, they enter into an agreement with everybody. They don't just do it, they seek permission from the officials, whether or not can we go ahead with this sort of a deal or cooperation or agreement with this political party and that political party. And then on the basis of their presentation, they are given a go-ahead by the TG, having engaged the officials that they can go ahead. So we are going to convene as the ANC, as the mandate of the National Executive Committee, look at the 1 year in coalition government and the impact, the challenges, the advantages, the weaknesses in terms of the coalitions. We will look into that and then chart the way forward about what needs to happen going forward in terms of the state of coalitions in the country. Thank you very much.
Okay. I said Tiji said maybe we take the other ones that is there. So there's some journalists that were sending messages, Tando, that they wanted to just ask. So I felt we just take all the questions if they are in, and then only close at once. Yes, Tando?
Just on BE and preferential.
Yeah, it's only Tando, we don't have any other covered.
Just on BE and preferential procurement, how do the ANC see how to fix the problem of unequal preferential treatment policies, especially in SOEs, and especially in light of the constitutional court judgments that took away the Minister of Finance's powers to tell SOEs to run their procurement processes. Thanks.
Okay, so
will be able to be assigned specific responsibilities by the National Executive Committee or through the Constitution. as you are aware, we now have a lot of members of the NEC that some of them are full-time in the House. The other amendment is that the only constitutional guided permanence in Lutuli House will only be the SGO. Then the rest, the NEC will decide who else may be full-time. So it means in terms of the constitution, we will only have 3 officials that are full-time, the Secretary General, the 2 DSGs. So that has to strengthen that there must be politically elected members of the NEC full-time in the Lutuli House that are 3. And obviously there could be a decision by the NEC to add any further in case there is a need to have any further full-time members. That is the first proposal. The second one is that with regards to the step aside, indeed, it will have to be constitutionalized in the constitution of the ANC. As you are aware, it is currently a resolution of conference. The Step Aside Foundation started in the Mangaung conference when the conference spoke about someone who might be, or who could affect the integrity of the organization that should step aside and so forth, but there were no mechanism. The Nazareth resolved and put certain mechanisms. We are now strengthening it through the constitutional amendment so that it can be applied in a manner that is transparent, is open, and is also consistently, because when it is in the constitution, the NEC or any structure will be obliged to follow what the constitution says. So it will be consistent, it will also be transparent, everyone will know when and how it should be applied. I think the lessons we have learned in the past 10 years since Mangaung will obviously be factored into that amendment. And we will definitely publish the amendments tomorrow, and hopefully they will give more clarity for our structures across the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. On the triple B implementation, we understand that based on the court judgment, Entity Minister of Finance couldn't proceed with the regulation. What the judgment said is that you needed a principal act that needed to emphasize or put into mechanism of preferential procurement processes, which were not there, that would have informed the regulations. That's why the regulations were set aside. What Minister Kolongwane Comrade has done was to explain that the devolving of those regulations in meeting the court judgment means that organs of state, meaning departments and entities, will have to do policies within their own department areas of operation so that they can be able to continue with the implementation of this policy, which is critical for transformation of our economy in the country. We, as we're saying, that it remains critical because it's a tool to ensure that we are able to transform our society. Procurement is one of the areas. So we've not abandoned it. What will happen in the medium to immediate to long medium is that every department and entity will have to have policies within their own areas that are able to ensure that we do not falter on PE and transformation. From the subcommittee point of view, we've agreed that we'll monitor this. We'll engage with private sector, but more of BBC, which have been the organization that has been had an outcry around this area. So we don't think that completely what it says that triple BE is not implemented. It will continue to be implemented, but differently. And what we'll do is monitor. If there are areas of concerns, we'll hold our employees who are in government accountable. For example, if in my portfolio, in my capacity as minister, it's picked up that I do not, or the entities are not implementing that or have not enforced or have not gone to put policies that will enforce the triple BE, then I will have to account as the responsible aid, political aid, because the governing party is the one that oversees the policies and the program of action, and this is the manifesto that they've made as a commitment between itself and its citizens. So that implementation remains critically important for this administration. Thank you.
Okay, TG. There was just one question about how much we intend to raise from selling assets or properties. We took a different approach, so the consolidation of properties is not a fundraising drive. It's looking at whether the properties still add value in what we are doing and whether historic sentimental value to be kept. So you might find that some of those that will sell will not really give us much, but we may come to the conclusion that we're not deriving any value from them. Maybe somebody can find them of better use and let's dispose of them. So that's the approach. So I can't give you any figure at this stage. Lastly, just to add on what Mamuluko was saying, the NEC felt that some of the proposals that came through conference, including preferential procurement, should rather be in legislation rather than regulations. And so Comrade Mamluk and the team will be looking into that when they talk to departments, that sometimes it's better if you have these proposals in legislation rather than regulations. So that's one of the things that they will attend to. But otherwise, thank you very much for coming. We love all of you, and we will see you. I will see you again on the 14th. We're going back to Nazareth to inspect the final setup. Please come with me.
Thanks. And as the TV said, we will be having visits to various media houses. We met SANEF today. So we'll come.